Carol,
Thank you very much. Simon's here with news that cash may no longer be king.
Charlie's someone who never seems to have any cash
No, I know.
when getting the teas in.
No, that's
It's a little
just
bit
not
light
fair.
with the
That's
coins and the
not fair.
folding stuff. Don't worry, you're not alone, Charlie. It's not just because you're tight. Remember a time when we paid for everything? The shopping, the petrols, definitely the pint down the pub with cash. Times have changed. Of the money we spend, less than a third of it is with cash, with debit cards now dominating the way we pay for things. For example, a decade ago, 90% of people paid for their drinks in a pub with cash. That figure is amazingly less than half now. We've been speaking to a pub landlord in Exeter about how the plastic revolution has been affecting his business.
Sure. Thanks, mate. 20 years ago, it was all cash with the occasional cheque if people were sitting down for a meal. And now it's very much primarily half cash, half card. It's the processing that costs. Formerly, someone will give you a £20 note, that would be your £20 note. Now, if they give you £20 on a card, it has to be processed by a card machine supplier and then processed by the bank when it arrives at the bank. It costs between 1% and 3%, depending on the card supplier, whereas before, cash was cash, you give that to the bank and you would pay one transaction fee. I reckon it costs in a fair to medium-sized business anywhere between £3,000 and £5,000 a year just to actually send the card payments through. We have no choice about that, really. People are looking for the convenience of using plastic these days instead of having to go to the cash machine and get cash, and therefore you just have to take it as a business expense.
Well, Dave Birch is a payments expert for Consult Hyperion. Morning to you, Dave.
Morning.
In a way, cash will never go away because for those small transactions, and most cash transactions are under a tenner, many places don't take cards for less than a tenner. So it's always going to be with us, isn't it?
I agree, that's true now, but because you have new technologies coming along, you know, the touch and go, contactless, mobile phones, that kind of thing, I'm not sure that's always going to be true.
So you think you'll actually be able to use your phone? I mean, how would that actually work?
Well, I did it myself on Saturday. I was at a market in Derby and I bought a book and I didn't have any cash. The guy didn't take cards, so I used my iPhone to send him some money using PayPal. These things are already happening.
I suppose, and also the other forms of payment are by cheque. I was given a cheque the other day and I thought, when am I going to get the time to go and pay this in? So, I mean, how are people, you know, what are people doing instead of that?
I agree. Being given a cheque is like being given homework. You feel sort of depressed that you're going to have to deal with it. Look, in many countries there are no cheques. You know, there are places like the UK and France where cheque use is still quite heavy, although cheques are being phased out in the UK. But there are plenty of countries where people get by without using cheques. They use internet transfers, gyro transfers, and the new mobile systems as well.
OK, paying with stuff on my mobile phone, what am I actually doing? How does that work? And isn't that going to exclude large parts of the population who might not be kind of quite so savvy and don't have smartphones?
Well, I think you're doing people down a little bit with that. I mean, mobile phone...
I'm not that savvy, is what I'm saying.
Mobile phone penetration is very high.
Yeah.
You know, even my mum knows how to send text messages. So I don't think the technology is a barrier.
Well done, Mrs. Birch.
I don't think it's the technology that's the barrier. It's as people's attitudes change. You have a generation coming, which, as your landlord chap said, expect to use debit cards everywhere. And it's that kind of thinking which will change the use of cash. The people who you're quite right in saying some older people still prefer to use it, but of course they're in a minority.
All right, David, thanks very much indeed. Well done, Mrs. Birch. On you're more savvy than I am,
Thank you.
about. And Charlie, bring some cash tomorrow, would you?
No, I was just checking. Sean and I are going to have a coffee that I'm buying just a second. So
OK. Am I in on that round? I don't think so.
Just the two of us. Thank you.